My name is Natalie Foster. I am 25 years old. I stood there in the dim light of the funeral home in Wichita, Kansas, the air thick with the scent of lilies and polished wood, staring at my dad's mahogany casket. My mom leaned in close during the viewing, her voice a sharp whisper meant only for me. Don't delude yourself, Natalie. Your father might have tolerated you, but you've always been the weak link in this family, and now that he's gone, things will finally run the way they should. Her words sliced through me like they always did, but before I could respond, Ethan, my older sister Grace's husband, and my dad's business partner sidled up beside me and murmured in my ear, "Don't worry, little sis. I'll spend his millions better than he ever did." Suddenly, a soft, impossible chuckle came from inside the coffin, and in that frozen moment, I knew something was horribly wrong, that the people I thought I knew had walked into a trap of their own making. The service dragged on with mourners murmuring condolences, but my mind was reeling from my mom's barb and Ethan's taunt. How could she say that to me right there by Dad's body? It was like she couldn't wait to remind me I was never good enough, never the golden child like Grace. Have any of you ever felt that sting from your own mom, like no matter what you do, you're always second best? I'd love to hear if you've been through something similar. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Growing up in Wichita, our family had always revolved around Foster Logistics, the company my parents built from a small trucking operation into a $12 million enterprise handling shipments across the Midwest. Dad was the heart of it, managing operations with that steady, kind way of his, while Mom handled the finances alongside Ethan, who joined after marrying Grace 9 years ago. I was the younger daughter, the one who came along unexpectedly when Grace was already 10, and from the start, Mom made it clear I was an afterthought. Grace was the star, beautiful, ambitious, the one Mom paraded at every family event, bragging about her straight A's or her volleyball scholarships. Me, I was the quiet one, the sensitive kid who preferred books to parties, and Mom never let me forget it. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" She'd snap during our casual afternoon visits to the house, her eyes rolling as I fumbled through helping with dinner prep. Dad would step in sometimes, giving me a hug and saying I had my own strengths, but Mom's disapproval hung over everything like a storm cloud. I remember one Christmas when I was 12, we'd gathered for a holiday party at our home in the suburbs, lights twinkling on the tree neighbors milling about. Grace had just won some award at school, and Mom spent the evening toasting her, pulling her into every conversation. When I shyly showed Mom a drawing I'd made, a detailed sketch of our family home, she glanced at it and said, "That's nice, Natalie, but Grace is out there networking, building her future. You should try harder instead of wasting time on hobbies." The guests chuckled awkwardly, but it crushed me. Dad pulled me aside later, whispering that my creativity was special, but moments like that piled up, making me feel invisible in my own family. Grace wasn't mean about it. She just soaked up the attention, and as we got older, she became Mom's mini-me, always agreeing with her, always on her side. By the time I graduated college with a degree in business administration, I joined Foster Logistics as a junior bookkeeper, hoping to prove myself. At 22, I was excited to contribute, reviewing invoices and spotting small efficiencies that saved us thousands. But Mom, who oversaw the books, dismissed every suggestion. "Stick to the basics, Natalie," she'd say in our weekly meetings at the office downtown, her tone dripping with condescension. Grace and Ethan handle the real strategy. Grace worked in sales, charming clients, while Ethan managed the finances with Mom. Dad trusted them all, but I started noticing little things, discrepancies in reports, expenses that didn't add up. When I'd bring them up privately to Dad, he'd nod thoughtfully, but Mom would overhear and lash out later. "Are you trying to undermine us?" she hissed once during a backyard barbecue for Grace's birthday, pulling me aside by the grill. "Your sister has given everything to this family, and here you are, nitpicking like the jealous little girl you've always been." Dad's death hit like a freight train. It was a sudden heart attack at the office, they said, on a rainy March afternoon last year. He was only 58, healthy as far as I knew, but the stress of running a $12 million business apparently caught up. I was devastated. He was the one parent who saw me, who encouraged me to keep pushing, despite Mom's constant put-downs. At the funeral home that day, as I stood by the casket in my black dress, hands clasped tightly, Mom played the grieving widow perfectly, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, her movements calculated. But her grief seemed off, too precise, too performative. Grace clung to her, sobbing genuinely, while Ethan hovered nearby, his expensive suit impeccable, but his eyes kept flicking to Mom in a way that made my skin crawl. When it was time for final goodbyes, I approached the casket whispering, "I miss you already, Dad. I'm sorry I couldn't do more." Mom went next, placing a red rose on his chest, but her hand lingered a second too long. Then Ethan leaned into me with that whisper, his cologne overpowering. The soft laugh from the coffin, it was faint, almost inaudible, but I swear I heard it. No one else reacted. Maybe they thought it was a creak in the wood or my imagination, but it lodged in my brain like a splinter. As the service ended, I noticed something else that chilled me: Dad's wedding ring. The simple gold band I'd seen him fidget with during stressful meetings wasn't on his finger. Instead, it glinted on Mom's right hand as she accepted condolences near the exit. Why would she take it before burial? Unless she knew something I didn't. I didn't sleep that night, tossing in my small apartment downtown, the Wichita skyline a blur through my window. By morning, I was at Wesley Medical Center demanding to see the autopsy report. The doctor, a kind woman in her 40s named Dr. Lisa Moreno, pulled up the file with a sympathetic frown. "Massive cardiac arrest," she explained. "His heart just stopped." But when I pressed, she hesitated. Rigor mortis set in unusually fast, typically hours, but it was advanced sooner. Could be exertion meds, or if the time of death was off. My pulse raced. Ethan had found Dad and called it in around 6:30 p.m., but this suggested he might have been gone longer. From there, I headed to the Foster Logistics office in the industrial district, the place buzzing with subdued chatter. Our receptionist, Amanda Ruiz, greeted me with teary eyes. "Natalie, I'm so sorry. I asked to see Dad's office, but she shifted uncomfortably." "Ethan sealed it, said for the lawyers. He's been in there every night going through files." That raised alarms. "What about the day Dad died?" Amanda lowered her voice. "Ethan left at 5 for an appointment but called 911 at 6:30 saying he'd found him collapsed. The timeline didn't match." "Did Dad seem off lately?" She nodded. "Secretive. He had me copy financials without logging them, changed passwords without telling Ethan or your mom." Just then, Ethan emerged from the elevator, his face paling when he saw me. "Natalie, what are you doing here?" I kept it cool. "Collecting Dad's personal things." He adjusted his tie, hands shaky. "Lawyers said to keep it sealed until the estate settles." "Why the late nights?" His jaw tightened. "Keeping the business afloat." But when I mentioned the timeline, he got defensive. "I came back for something I forgot." Too slick. As I left, he stepped close. "Grieving is hard, Natalie. All this poking around, it's not good for you, especially with your health issues." I froze. I'd never told him about my occasional anxiety spells. How did he know, and why phrase it like a warning? Driving home through Wichita's flat streets, the pieces nagged at me: fast rigor, wonky timeline, Ethan rifling files, Dad's secret changes. Something stank. My phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. "Nat, I know you're digging. Meet at Grandma's grave. Midnight. Alone. Dad." My heart stopped. Impossible. I'd seen his body. But what if... That evening, Mom called, her voice syrupy sweet, a far cry from her funeral jab. "Natalie, we need to talk. Come over, there's things about your father you should know." Against my better judgment, I went to the family home in the quiet suburbs, the place where so many of Mom's humiliations had played out. She answered in a silk robe, hair perfect, gesturing to the couch. Wine. I declined. She poured herself a glass, sitting close. Your dad and I had problems. He was distant, obsessed with work. I felt alone. Then the bomb. Ethan was there. He listened. We got close, too close. An affair. With Grace's husband. She didn't blink. I ended it weeks ago, but then your dad... Tears fell, but they felt rehearsed. Why tell me? No secrets, dear. Your family. But her eyes sharpened. Have you been to the office, talked to Amanda? The police? There it was, fishing. I played dumb. Just picking up stuff. She stood pacing. Ethan stressed. Don't make it worse. Then, sitting too close, she touched my hand. I'm worried about you, Natalie. Your anxiety stress could trigger something worse. These things run in families, you know. Ice in my veins. It wasn't concern. It was a veiled threat. Grieving can be dangerous. All this investigating stop for your health. I pulled away, standing. I should go. She squeezed harder. Promise you'll rest, stop digging. I couldn't lose you too. Translation. Back off or else. In my car, I realized I'd recorded the talk on my phone app, instinct kicking in. Her threats captured. Then another text. Did she threaten you? How, unless someone watched? Unless Dad was alive? The drive to the cemetery felt surreal, Wichita's nightlights blurring in the rain. Grandma's grave, Dad's mom sat under an old elm, and there in shadows stood my father, alive. Nat. His voice broke. I collapsed into his hug. How? He explained, faked with help from an old doctor friend, a drug mimicking arrest temporary paralysis. Mom and Ethan planned this. He showed video them in a hotel. Once John's gone, we split the 12 million, Ethan said. And Natalie, Mom replied. Her anxiety makes it easy, a little more stress, and nature handles it. They'd embezzled $2 million over years. Dad found out, installed cameras. Mom's diary detailed tampering my meds. That's why I called you March 15th, he said. We planned this. But I didn't remember Foggy. She's poisoning you, Nat. Arsenic in low doses clouding memory. He gave an antidote. Memories flooded back Dad's call, the plan agreeing to play grieving daughter. We sat by the headstone. Tomorrow, we end it. The antidote worked its way through me as we sat there in the cemetery's quiet, chill memories sharpening like a lens coming into focus. Dad's plan from that March 15th call flooded back the fake death, my role as the grieving daughter poking around to draw them out. Ethan thinks he's meeting me at the warehouse tomorrow. Dad said, his voice low but steady. But we'll turn the tables. Back at my apartment that night, I paced the living room, the Wichita streetlights casting long shadows through the blinds. Dad had insisted on crashing on my couch, refusing to risk a hotel where Mom or Ethan might spot him. We went over the details again, the embezzlement proof he'd gathered, hidden cameras catching Mom and Ethan plotting in hushed tones about splitting the $12 million once Dad was gone, and I was handled. Mom had been the driving force, her diary entries chilling, detailing how she'd slowly swapped my anxiety meds with arsenic-laced versions, low doses to fog my mind, make me doubt myself, eventually push me over the edge. She's always resented you, Dad admitted softly, sitting at my kitchen table with a mug of decaf. From the day you were born, she saw you as a complication, stealing attention from Grace. But this is beyond anything I imagined. The next morning, the pressure ramped up before I even left for work. My phone rang. Mom, her voice laced with that fake concern she'd perfected. Natalie, honey, how are you holding up? Grace and I are worried you seem so scattered at the funeral. I gripped the phone, Dad listening on speaker from across the room. I'm fine, Mom, just processing. She sighed dramatically. Well, come by the house this afternoon. We need to discuss the will. Your sister thinks it's time we sort things out, and frankly, with your issues, It might be best if Grace and Ethan handle the bulk of it. There it was, her opening shot belittling me, positioning Grace as the capable one. My issues, I echoed, anger bubbling. You mean the anxiety you've thrown in my face since I was a kid? She clucked her tongue. Don't be dramatic, Natalie. You've always been the fragile one. Just come over, we'll talk. I hung up my hands, shaking. Dad nodded approvingly. Good. Keep her thinking you're off balance. It'll make her slip. But inside it stung, reopening old wounds. All those years of her favoritism. When I was 15 during a family holiday gathering at the house, Mom had announced Grace's acceptance to college with a toast gushing about her perfect daughter. When my turn came 2 years later, she barely mentioned it, muttering, "Well, at least you managed to graduate." Dad had pulled me into a hug, then whispering encouragement, but Mom's dismissal had left me questioning my worth. At the office that day, the tension was thicker than the Kansas humidity. As junior bookkeeper, I buried myself in spreadsheets, but every entry screamed red flags, falsified invoices, offshore transfers totaling over $2 million. Ethan cornered me in the break room around noon, his smile too tight. "Natalie heard you're stirring things up, asking Amanda about timelines." I met his gaze. "Just trying to understand Dad's last day." He leaned in, voice dropping. "Let it go. Your mom's right. Stress isn't good for you. We wouldn't want another family tragedy." The threat hung heavy, echoing Mom's words from last night. Grace wandered in, then her eyes puffy but sharp. "Nat, Mom says you're coming over later. We need to unite as a family now." But her tone carried Mom's influence, like she was parroting the script. The afternoon visit to the family home felt like walking into a lion's den. Mom greeted me at the door with a hug that felt like a vice, Grace and Ethan already seated in the living room amid stacks of legal papers. "Sit, dear." Mom said, her eyes scanning me like I was a problem to solve. She launched right in. "Your father's will leaves the business to all of us, but practically Grace and Ethan should lead. You've never had the spine for it." Grace nodded eagerly. "It's what Dad would want, stability." Ethan chimed in, "And the assets, $12 million in value, will manage it fairly." But Mom's foot tapped impatiently, her earlier funeral whisper echoing in my head. "Natalie, sign these proxies. Let your sister handle your share. You're not equipped." I hesitated, feigning confusion. Why the rush? And what about the discrepancies I found in the books? Mom's face hardened, the first crack in her facade. "What discrepancies are you accusing us?" She stood looming over me. "You've always been jealous of Grace, trying to tear her down. If you keep this up, you'll regret it. Your health can't take it." I left, shaken, her words burrowing deep, amplifying that old feeling of being the lesser daughter. Back home, Dad reviewed the recording I'd snuck of the meeting. "She's escalating, pushing you to back off." But the emotional toll mounted. That night, I broke down in therapy over video call my counselor, noting how Mom's constant belittling had eroded my confidence, leading to real anxiety flares. "She's using your vulnerabilities against you," Dad said later, but it hurt, knowing she'd initiated every jab, steering Grace and Ethan like puppets. The next day brought more heat. Grace called, tearful but accusatory. "Mom says you're paranoid, Nat. Why are you fighting this? Just let us help." It was Mom's playbook, divide and conquer. At work, Ethan, accidentally, CC'd me on an email chain with forged documents covering the embezzlement, a subtle warning. My health dipped. The residual arsenic effects left me dizzy, missing a deadline on a vendor report, which Mom used as ammo in a group text. "See, Natalie's dropping the ball again. Grace, take over her tasks." The favoritism burned. Grace got promotions while I got scorn. Dad and I plotted in whispers, but the pressure built my relationships straining. My boyfriend Alex noticed my withdrawal during our date at a local cafe. "You're distant, Nat. Is it the grief?" I couldn't tell him the truth yet, but Mom's manipulations were isolating me, making me question everything. By evening, Dad got a tip from his doctor friend Ethan was panicking, planning to confront me at the company warehouse after hours. "This is it," Dad said. We set the trap I'd go alone, wired for sound drawing out confessions. As I drove there through Wichita's twilight, my phone buzzed. Mom again. "Natalie, stop this nonsense. Come home now or you'll force my hand." Her voice carried that deep contempt, the same she'd shown since childhood, resenting me for not being the daughter she wanted. At the warehouse, shadows loomed among stacked crates. Ethan emerged, gun in hand, eyes wild. "You couldn't leave it alone, could you?" He advanced, ranting about the $2 million he'd siphoned with Mom's help. "Your mom planned it all. She wanted John out. You neutralized. The $12 million is ours." Just as his finger tightened on the trigger, lights flooded the space. Dad stepped out from behind a stack of crates, phone raised, recording. "Every word, Ethan. The embezzlement, the threats, all on tape." Ethan's face twisted from rage to terror. "John, no, you're dead." Dad's voice was calm, cutting. "Disappointed you and Susan thought you had it all figured out." Detective Maria Gonzalez emerged with 2 officers' badges flashing under the lights. "Drop the weapon, Mr. Thornton." Ethan hesitated, gun wavering, but the click of handcuffs echoed as they tackled him. As they dragged him away, he screamed, "Susan masterminded it. She poisoned Natalie, planned your murder. Check her diary." My knees buckled against a crate. The warehouse's cold concrete grounding me as the adrenaline crashed. Dad pulled me into a hug, his solid presence erasing the nightmare of his death. But the real confrontation loomed. Mom. We drove straight to the family home, Detective Gonzalez tailing us in her cruiser. The suburbs were quiet, streetlights casting eerie glows on manicured lawns. Inside, chaos reigned, papers shredded on the living room floor. A suitcase half-packed, the acrid smell of gasoline wafting from upstairs. Mom was in the bedroom, frantically stuffing clothes and stacks of cash, nearly $800,000, into a bag. "Susan," Dad said from the doorway. She whirled, face paling to ash. "John, impossible, you're gone." Her voice cracked, but rage flared. "You faked it. To trap me." She lunged at him, nails raking the air. "You ruined everything." Dad caught her arms. "You tried to kill me, poison our daughter for what, $2 million, embezzled the $12 million empire." Mom jerked free, grabbing a gasoline can and lighter. "I deserved it, Grace, and I built this while you babied that weakling Natalie. She was always a burden, jealous, useless. I should have ended her sooner." Her words gutted me, confirming the hatred she'd harbored since my birth. The deep shame she felt for having a daughter who didn't mirror her ambitions. I stepped forward, voice steady despite the tremor. "Mom, stop. It's over." Her eyes locked on mine, contempt blazing. "You, the disappointment who couldn't even hold her job without crumbling, Grace was my real daughter. You were just an accident." The lighter sparked flames, licking the air as she doused papers. Dad tackled the can away, but Mom swung at me, her slap landing hard across my cheek. "You'll regret crossing me." Detective Gonzalez burst in, wrestling her down. "Susan Foster, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, embezzlement, and arson." As they cuffed her, Mom's facade, shattered sobs racking her body, not from remorse, but defeat. "Grace will never forgive you," she spat at me. "You're destroying our family." But in her eyes, I saw the truth. She'd always seen me as expendable, resenting my existence for diluting her focus on Grace. Grace arrived minutes later, summoned by a frantic call from Ethan before his arrest. She stood in the doorway, taking in the scene, Mom in cuffs, Dad alive, me with a reddening cheek. "What? Dad?" Tears streamed as she hugged him, but when the detective explained, her face crumpled. "Mom, you did this." Mom, being let out, turned. "For us, Grace, for our future." Natalie was holding us back. Grace recoiled, looking at me with fresh eyes. "All those times you favored me, it was poisoning everything." For the first time, my sister saw the toxicity, the way Mom had pitted us against each other. The arrests made local headlines in Wichita. Family business empire crumbles in murder plot. The trial dragged over months in the downtown courthouse packed with reporters. Prosecutors played the recordings, Ethan's warehouse confession, Mom's threats from my visits, the hidden videos of them plotting in hotel rooms. The 12 million is ours once John's heart gives out. Mom's voice echoed coldly. And Natalie, her anxiety pills are easy to tamper with. A forensic expert testified, arsenic in Ms. Foster's system, chronic low doses over weeks, causing memory fog and health decline. Another month, and it could have been fatal. The embezzlement breakdown sealed it. 2 million siphoned through fake vendors, Mom signing off on every transfer. Mom took the stand, trying to paint herself as the victim. John was distant. I felt trapped. Natalie was always difficult, jealous of Grace. But her deep dislike shone through the jury, seeing how she'd initiated every betrayal from the affair with Ethan to the poisoning plan. Ethan cracked under cross-examination, blaming Mom. She started it, pushed the embezzlement, the murders. Grace testified reluctantly, admitting Mom's favoritism. She always put me first, but now I see it destroyed Natalie. The verdict came swiftly. Mom got 20 years for conspiracy, attempted murder, fraud, and arson. Ethan life, without parole, for the same plus embezzlement. As sentences were read, Mom's eyes met mine, no regret, just cold resentment. "You'll always be nothing without me," she mouthed. In the aftermath, the consequences rippled. Foster Logistics liquidated amid the scandal, assets divided after recovering the 2 million. Dad and I got our shares, but Grace, tainted by association, lost clients and her sales role. She moved to Topeka, our relationship strained. Mom's manipulations had driven a wedge too deep for quick mending. Ethan rotted in prison, his tailored suits replaced by orange jumpsuits. Mom's life behind bars was a far cry from her suburban queen status. No more controlling gatherings. No more belittling me in front of others. Friends and neighbors distanced themselves. Her reputation shattered. Whispers followed Grace, costing her social circle. Dad and I used our portion to start anew, a small consulting firm in Wichita's Pearl District equivalent, advising family businesses on fraud prevention. "We turn our pain into protection," Dad said at our launch. Healing wasn't instant. The arsenic left lingering fatigue, but therapy helped unpack Mom's abuse. The constant initiations of conflict, from childhood humiliations at holiday parties to adult demands that eroded my self-worth. My anxiety eased as I set boundaries. No contact with Mom, limited with Grace until she acknowledged the favoritism. Alex, my boyfriend, became a rock. Our relationship deepened without Mom's shadow. I advanced at the new firm, becoming operations lead, proving my weakness was Mom's projection. Dad and I grew closer, weekend walks in local parks replacing tense family visits. "I'm proud of you, Nat," he'd say, echoing the support Mom withheld. Looking back, I learned family isn't blind loyalty, it's mutual respect and boundaries. Love shouldn't come with conditions or contempt. Mom's deep dislike stemmed from her insecurities, but I won't carry that anymore. I've chosen myself, building a life free from her control. She'll never hurt or use me again. That chapter's closed. What would you do if your mom treated you like this? Share your stories in the comments. Have you ever had to cut ties for your peace?